So, how far do you think an EV needs to travel on a tank of electrons? This is a question that many people ask. How far does it go on a charge? And then you'll go, oh, it'll do 350 or 450 kilometers. And then they'll go, oh, well, that's not enough. I need at least 1,000 k range, and it's got to tow a 5-ton caravan. How often do people tow their caravan and need 1,000 kilometers on a tank of juice? The average in Australia is supposedly around 38 or 40 kilometers per day, which equates to about 15,000 kilometers a year. I do a bit more than that, and I'm retired. I tend to do around the 25,000 kilometers, which equates to 70 kilometers a day. Now, one thing that a lot of people sprout is, well, it's only 40 k's a day, so you don't need much more than that. Well, yeah, that may be the case, but you don't do 40 k's 7 days a week. You might do a lot less most days and then go on a long trip. So for me, when I was working, I would be doing about 100 to 110 k's a day, 4 days a week, and the other 3 was incredibly variable, from very little right the way up to hundreds of kilometers if I went on a trip. I also know people who've bought a very old second-hand Nissan Leaf, which had got maybe 50 or 60 kilometers of range. But for them, that was all they needed, because their trip to work was 6 k's and their trip home from work was 6 k's. And after 3 or 4 days, they'd have to recharge it again. And if they ever wanted to do anything else, they'd take a different vehicle. So how far do we really need to be able to travel? At the moment, say the Tesla 3 rear-wheel drive will do 350 to 380 kilometers. They've increased the size of its battery to 60 kilowatts LFP style battery, and the long range will probably get 480 to maybe 500. It all comes down to how you drive it. It's the same with a petrol or diesel. If you've got a big heavy right foot, you're not going to get anywhere near as much out of a tank of juice. What do we really need? It comes down to personal choice and personal preference at the end of the day. If you're a traveling salesman who would do 400 and 500 kilometers in a day, 5 days a week, you're going to need something different to that friend of mine that traveled 6 k's to work and 6 k's home 6 days a week, basically, was what he was doing. So the requirement is not, oh, I need to do 1,000 k's, because nobody does that every day on a regular basis. I'm sure as battery technology improves, there will come a day when we've got 600 mile or 1,000 kilometer batteries as standard. At the moment, they're not. So what have we got? Basically, we've got anything from around the 200 kilometer mark up to about, let's call it 500 kilometer mark. What we need really with cars that will, let's say, do between the 300 and 400 kilometer a mark on a tank of electrons, what we really need is a super duper charging system. Now, if you look at America, you've got 2 main people over there providing charging. You've got the Tesla Supercharger system. That is probably the single main reason for buying a Tesla. You can travel across the whole of America without batting an eyelid and just stop at Superchargers every now and again and fill up. You've also got over there, you've got things like Electrify America, which really hasn't got as many. They're not quite as stable. They do tend to break down a bit. In Australia here, we've got a supercharger network, but compared to America, which is only a fraction bigger, we've got very few superchargers. Down the east coast from Brisbane all the way down through Sydney, Melbourne to Adelaide, you can quite happily travel that without any worries with your Tesla supercharger network. Over here in Western Australia, we've got a total of 4 as of filming. There's a 5th one in Lance Lynn, but that won't be done till later on in the year. There may be another 1 or 2 that Tesla's looking at putting in. I haven't seen any confirmation of that, but I expect that that would be the case. But even so, we've got 4, and another 2 would make 6. Our state government is putting in another set of chargers to run from way up in the north all the way down to the south and across a little bit into the east, a place called Kalgoorlie, and that's going to be a start. But in order to get the uptake of EVs, we need to have a good charging network. Then it does not matter how far your car will travel on a tank of electrons, because there'll be plenty of places to stop. Having said that, it's going to be very hard to travel with an 80 kilometre range and then stop every 60, 70 kilometres to recharge. That's probably going to get a bit boring. But if we look back at what the RAC did in WA, they put in a heap of 50 kilowatt super fast DC chargers, as they were many years ago, around the time that the Nissan Leafs, Leaves, were being sold, and they didn't have a range of 200 kilometers back then, so they stuck in these chargers every 120, 150 kilometers, and that opened up the southwest of the state to these new EVs. Those 50 kilowatt an hour DC chargers are a little bit old hat now, but it's still there. They're still working. As I said, Tesla's stuck in a few. Other companies have stuck in some fast chargers as well. There's a 350 kilowatt charger down south towards Bunbury. But there still really isn't that charging network. So I can understand people going, oh, I want 800 kilometers range. That's probably a bit excessive, but what they perceive is a lack of chargers. Here in WA, yeah, there's probably a slight lack. We're getting better. I've only got an SR Plus Model 3, a rear-wheel drive. Its range on a full tank, 100%, is around the 330 to 340 kilometre mark, which is a smidge over 200 miles. But there's plenty of stations around for me to charge. As you get older, like me, you tend to need comfort breaks. Every few hundred kilometers, I probably need a comfort break, and I probably need another coffee by then as well. So, you know, the range of just over 300 k's is perfectly adequate for me. I've driven quite long distances. Going down from, say, Perth to Albany, you've got to stop and charge. It's certainly a lot more than 350 k's. But there is now a Tesla Supercharger halfway in a place called Williams. So you go to Williams, stop, there's a coffee shop and restrooms and so on there. Top up, grab yourself a drink or a bite to eat, makes a great lunch break, and then finish the journey down to Albany. Same coming back. Going up north towards, let's say, Geraldton, there's no Superchargers north of a place called Caravan Shopping Centre. But there are some fast DC chargers up that way. They're limited to about 50 kilowatts an hour, but that's still good because I can stop, top up in about 40 minutes or so, which gives me ample time for a rest break, a lunch, coffee, stretch the legs, get the sanity back and move on. It's not quite like driving a petrol or diesel car where you fill up with petrol, have your wee, jump back in the car and start driving again. But we're getting there. So at the end of the day, what do we really need? It's up to you, really. For me, my 300 kilometre comfortable range is more than sufficient. Those people who've got long range and performance Model 3s, that's great. The Hyundai Kona will do more like 400. The Ioniq 5 does about the same. So there's cars out there that will happily do the 400 kilometre mark. And that may keep 90% of the people happy. There's always going to be the idiot that still wants a 1,000 kilometre range vehicle for the once a year holiday where he drives from Perth and drives 1,500 to 1,800 kilometres north to go to a resort. And he won't buy an EV until it'll do that, which is just daft because most diesel cars, such as, I used to have a Land Cruiser, it would carry 150 litres of diesel and it would do 1,000 kilometres, no problem. I never did 1,000 kilometres. I would stop maybe after 400, have a break, have a snack, jump back in the car and do another 400, by which time I'd probably fill up with some more diesel. I didn't need the 1,000 kilometre range that it did. So when I was driving around to and from work, not very efficient, I would still only fill up every few weeks. Whereas with my EV, I wake up in the morning, guess what? You can have a full tank of juice because I've got my charger at home. You can't do that with a petrol or diesel. So you've got to rethink what you're doing. We need to improve the charging network and then range won't matter so much. And in the future, I'm sure we're going to get much longer range batteries. So what do you think? Do we need a 1,000 kilometre range? Do we need a charger every 50 kilometres that will top your car up in 2 minutes? I don't know. How far do you need your car to go on a tank of juice?